What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Active Life Podcast. I'm Dr. Sean. I'm your host, and today's guest is Dr. Nick. You might know him from Instagram as the Fittest Doc. This dude is awesome. Not only is he a Taekwondo black belt, a CrossFitter who snatches nearly 300 pounds, he's a medical doctor who works with people both in person in Denver, Colorado, and online from any of 23 states where the company he works for, SteadyMD, is licensed to be able to provide medical care. Dr. Nick is a stud. On today's podcast, what we talk about is what it would take for a coach to earn enough of his respect and his trust to be able to refer patients of his to their gym, to their coaching stewardship. I believe that this topic that I discussed with Dr. Nick on the show today is among the most important topics for coaches and fitness professionals to understand how to get the attention of and earn the respect of so that you can get the referral from the people who currently garner the most trust of the general public in the world. Medical doctors. Whether you believe it or not, whether you are somebody who thinks the medical community is ass backwards or perfectly straightforward, you need to respect that society has the medical profession on a pedestal. And if you are a coach or a fitness professional of any sort who wants to be taken seriously, earning trust from the medical community in your area is a major step in doing that. We spend a significant chunk of time on our show today talking about how you can do that, all the way down to the tactics of how to get into a medical clinic's office and get that doctor referring to you. Hint, it's not what you think it is. It is not what you think it is. That's your hint. Not going to talk anymore. Let's get you to Dr. Nick. All right. Dr. Nick, the Fittest Doc. Welcome to the Active Life Podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you so much for the invitation to be on the show. And I've followed you now for a while, and happy to be here.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, I'm very excited to interview you on the show today because I think that there's a lot out there that trainers and doctors, and even the clients of trainers and doctors alike, can learn from a sense that, as we discussed before the show started, there is a level of distrust that is healthy. And then there's a level of distrust for entire communities that is unhealthy and potentially debilitating for people. And doctors have earned some distrust, and so have coaches. And I believe that it's important, and if not imperative, that we figure out why that is and how to gain that trust back, and why people like you are continuing to earn the trust of more and more and more people, both from the clinical landscape and, the people who want to get in shape and the people who are helping them do that. So I think that you're a perfect person to kind of tie those worlds together.
Awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure. So can you tell us a little bit about you? I mean, you're a practicing medical doctor, primary care out of Denver. What else is there to Dr. Nick?
So I actually, I just graduated residency last year. I went to Ohio State for med school in 2015. In addition to practicing locally in Denver, Colorado, I also practice nationally, most currently in 23 states with SteadyMD, which is an online telemedicine medical group where, we see patients. Essentially, patients have instant access to me whenever they want, all through the day, without any waiting rooms, without, 5-minute conversation with their doctor and feeling like they're rushed. So essentially, I've appreciated my work with SteadyMD because it gives me, quite literally, all of my appointments are either, an hour, however long the patient needs, whether that's an hour or an hour and a half has been the longest so far that my appointments have gone. And that much time allows me to truly approach the patient in a holistic fashion and to look at all the elements that may be causing their issues instead of just a quick 5-minute in and out appointment and then, throwing some Prozac at them or some pills. I ultimately don't believe that would remedy a situation. So, even here in Denver where I see patients, I do much the same thing in terms of trying to maximize the encounter and getting to the root of the problem. Though, one thing I have noticed, Sean, and I'm sure you know this too, is, for everybody who likes a genuine, holistic approach that actually solves their problem, there are many people who don't want to go through the work. There are many people who quite literally will say, I'm not interested in doing all of that to fix my anxiety or fix my depression. How about you just give me a pill? So, I think it's just important to meet people where they're at, not necessarily try to impose my values and kind of my objectives on people, and instead, ask them what they want from me and just try to give them as much as I can with the knowledge that I have, and kind of contemplating adverse reactions and potential benefits of a medication, and then let them make the choice. If they want to stay off the medication and they want to make lifestyle decisions and lifestyle changes that I encourage, that's something that I can do also. So anyway, outside of SteadyMD and my practice locally, I CrossFit. I've CrossFitted since 2000, and essentially since my second year of med school, since 2011, or was it 2012? I don't know. But essentially, I've CrossFitted for a long time now, and my joy, so to speak, before CrossFit was martial arts. So I'm trained. I'm a black belt in Taekwondo. I had some training in Judo, Jiu-Jitsu, and then most recently, and actually what introduced me into CrossFit was Krav Maga. It's definitely what I love the most. But yeah, that's a quick primer on me. Anything else you want to know, let me know.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, you started CrossFit in 2011, 2012. I started in 2010. Why don't we look the same?
That's a mixed bag, right? So, I think that essentially, and I'm sure you've heard of the word epigenetics before, right? And nutrigenomics. So, there's a certain element of that. I think, let's just put it this way. I think that the most simple-minded person would hear the question that you just asked and think to themselves, genetics. Unfortunately, I don't think that, the most simple answer that anybody can give any question is truly the correct answer. And in that respect, I think, like I said, epigenetics and nutrigenomics and even fundamentals in movement, right? So, Matt Fraser, who I'm sure you're aware of, he's actually a mechanical engineer, and with that, I have an engineering background also. That was my undergrad degree, mechanical engineering. I don't think about doing a clean or a snatch or a shoulder to overhead like everybody else does. I'm literally thinking in my head as I'm doing the movement, okay, how far away is the bar from my center of mass? What is the moment's arm, about my center of mass with respect to the weight? I'm thinking of just literally nothing but physics fundamentals that, truthfully and honestly, I'm a nerd enough to come to this conclusion. But I truly think that, in as much as so many people choose to approach weightlifting with bravado and masculinity and, blah, blah, blah. Truly, weightlifting is just applied physics. It's literally taking the physics you learn in the classroom and applying it to the gym setting. And if you're able to do that, not only will you make more advancements than other people will make and have physical changes that other people don't, but you will also be able to stay away from injury that other people will come across, just because, for example, here's a really good one. Have you ever seen somebody running and they have every kind of stride, they have valgus knees? Their knees are bowing in, and they think that's normal, right? I look at that and I'm like, wow, you're going to there's going to be an MCL injury sometime in the future. You're literally just not, the knee is it's a hinge joint, right? And if you're putting that type of stress on it, you're going to come across injury in the future. So yeah, very long-winded answer to basically tell you that I think that the answer to your question is multifaceted. And, ultimately it doesn't matter, Sean. Ultimately what matters is but, how much healthier are you now than you were in 2010 or 2011?
Oh yeah. And frankly, I was making a bit of a joke there also. I mean, I imagine that the first answer to that question could be, you worked harder. The second answer could also be you had a better base. The third answer could be genetics has something to do with it. The way you think, there's the whole list of things.
Oh, absolutely.
It was really just a joke to have people understand that the person I'm talking to right now is not just an MD who's out there with a license, expounding a bunch of their virtues that they believe to be true. I'm talking to somebody who lives what they talk about. That's what I wanted to make sure people understood.
And I do think that's important. You mentioned earlier that a lot of doctors get deserved a level of what was the exact terminology you used?
Mistrust.
Yes, a level of deserved mistrust. And I actually completely agree with that. I mean, I'm sure you've seen hospital cafeterias, right? Mm-hmm. Where you can find McDonald's or KFC or whatever else. And, on the surface, that looks bad. The problem is, even below the surface, Sean, it's worse, right? You go into any hospital, go into the nurse's lounge or the doctor's lounge, you will find, refined carbohydrates galore. You will find processed food galore. And, the unfortunate consequence of that is that all too often people in healthcare, the people who essentially should be role models, you're in a job where you should be role models for your patients, and they're not being role models, right? And so I think that there's a level of that mistrust that is absolutely deserved. I actually just came back from a medical conference in California with CrossFit Health, called the DDC. Anyway, I was at the gym that weekend, last weekend, working out, and I came across a woman who approached me after the workout and said that, she was so happy that someone like me was in medicine and in primary care, because her experience with doctors has absolutely not been positive, not been good, and she has not reflected upon them well. She talked to me about her most recent doctor, who apparently, I believe she was a 62-year-old woman. Like, even standing in front of me, she had muscle, right? You could tell she was very fit, and she did well in the workout. Unfortunately, her physician, her doctor, at one of their most recent appointments, lambasted her for her BMI, looked at her number on the computer and said, "Hey, your BMI is 27, 28. You're overweight. You need to lose some weight."
Man,
And yeah, exactly. And this was her reaction too. She told me that she sat there looking at her doctor, just listening and trying to wrap her head around what he just said. And not even a week later, she told me that she fired him, found another doctor. And I think the most pivotal part of this story was that she actually wrote him a letter. She wrote her former doctor a letter, letting him know that, hey, listen, number one, BMI is something that is very applicable to people who genuinely have a high body fat percentage, and not so much people who are very heavy because they are very muscular. And that's what she was. Not only was she able to, at 62, not only is she running faster than she ever had in her life and doing things that other 62-year-olds can't do, but she was very healthy. And as she noted to me, all of her biomarkers, from her cholesterol to her hemoglobin A1C to everything, were completely within normal values. Yet this doctor is going to try and tell her that her BMI is too high and that she needs to lose weight. So, she, in her letter, she commented on that. And the part that I think is significant here, she also commented on her own doctor and his body habitus and how much weight he was carrying around his midsection, and essentially let him know that, he has no right to be criticizing other people about their weights, whether or not it's deserved or not. Yet, he is very much unhealthy and obviously unhealthy. And, insofar as she told me, she didn't get a response back from him. But, I definitely think it's very important that patients stand up for themselves in those situations where it's very clear that the person giving you advice is a hypocrite.
Yeah. And I think it's important for people to understand also. I think the most valuable thing that this woman you're talking about did was find another doctor instead of quitting on the medical community. That's one of the big issues that I think exists is there's healthy distrust, and then there's completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater, categorizing an entire community of people. It's no different than sexism. It's no different than religious beliefs. It's no different than racism. It's all the idea of all doctors do that, and that's just not true. So instead of trying to fix the medical community in one conversation, how do we help the person who's listening to this, especially if they're a coach, find the right kind of doctors to work with? Because one of the difficult things to do is travel from every clinic within a 25-mile radius of where you are to say, hey, doc, I have patients who I'd like to send to you, and I don't want them to get rest, ice, and slice. Is there any way that we can create a relationship whereby I can comfortably send my clients to you, and when appropriate, you would send your patients to me? How do I create that kind of trust with you? And first and foremost, how do they find the doctor who it's worth creating that relationship with?
So, that's a great question. I think that I can only answer it with what I know. I'm sure there's a better answer to this, but I can only answer that question with what I physically know at this moment. And at this moment, I do know that CrossFit Health is in the process that literally just started last week of putting together a website and essentially a national map where you can go as a coach or as a patient, you can go to the website and just, put into the website your zip code, and it will essentially bring up every doctor within your area that is part of CrossFit Health. And that's nothing to scoff at, in my opinion. CrossFit Health, teaches, number one, at pretty much every doctor who is part of CrossFit Health CrossFits, and they understand, the true ideology behind obesity, and are very vocal about getting patients to change their lifestyle and make modifications to their day-to-day as necessary. So I do know that CrossFit Health will quite literally give coaches and give patients a directory essentially of doctors in their area who are kind of in the know and know better. And that's essentially why I answered initially that I can only tell you what I know. I'm sure there are other programs like that. I'm sure there are other websites like that I simply don't know. But, I would think that outside of that answer that I just gave, the only real thing that you could do as a coach, as a physical therapist, as somebody involved in that area of healthcare. And I use that word very specifically because I quite literally believe that coaches, gym coaches, that is healthcare. That is the care of your health. Anyway, I think another answer is for those coaches to essentially visit their local doctor's offices, right? And visit the doctors at play. And essentially just, if they're anything like me in the office, they don't have a whole lot of time to talk, but, maybe calling ahead and setting aside 5 minutes and just quite literally having a conversation like this, where you pick that doctor's mind and hear their thoughts. And, I think I truly believe that you can very quickly discern, people who have one type of mindset from people who have another type of mindset. And, a coach could use that to essentially pick and choose certain doctors in their area who they would be willing to send patients to, and, who, as you stated earlier, there will be a reciprocal relationship where patients get sent to the coach as well. I'm actually currently, I haven't set it isn't set in stone yet, but I'm actually, in the process of making a program where I coach my patients who want to be coached, who are intimidated by the gym, but obviously have a certain rapport with me, given that they see me for a while. I want to be able to bring them to my gym. And then guess what? Guess who the coach is for today? Me. As I am trained and I am a certified level 1 coach. I would, the program that I'm setting up will help to essentially introduce all those people who are very apprehensive about the gym, and nobody else, no experienced athletes, just those people. And I'm coaching them. And then, we go through 5 or 10 sessions or however many sessions it takes for them to be comfortable with the movements and the whole purpose of everything. And then, they can essentially graduate from me and now move on to the regular gym where there are other coaches who are much more experienced than me, but also have the same type of mentality as me. So
Dr. Nick, I love that you're looking to do that. I have a question for you in regards to it, and then I want to come back to another one. And that question is, if there was a gym in your area who was doing that well already, would you rather your patients go to that gym than have to do it yourself? Or are you doing it yourself because you believe that there needs to be a level prior to the gym, no matter how well the gyms are doing it? All right, I'll rephrase that. Are there gyms that you know of who those patients of yours would be well served going to? And if so, why set up the situation where you need to coach them in the first place instead of just having them go to those gyms?
One word: rapport.
So they already trust you.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Rapport matters, especially when we're talking about people who are very apprehensive about going to the gym and kind of exposing their weaknesses or exposing their body or wearing loose fitting clothing that doesn't, cover too much of their body. These people need someone who they know from the get-go is on their side, has been on their side in the clinic and will be on their side in the gym, and then will establish enough time with me in the gym to realize, hey, this gym isn't that intimidating. I can move on from Dr. Nick and start coming to 9 a.m. classes or 12 p.m. classes or whatever time class I want. And then boom, I've essentially, by simple virtue of lessening the apprehension in my patients, I've improved their health, because now they're going to be constantly coming to the gym. And, I'm sure you feel the same way, Sean, but I think one of the beautiful things with workouts in the gym and CrossFit is that when you are not living a life that is conducive to your health, the gym will expose it very quickly. Whether that's smoking, eating poorly, drinking a bunch, like the gym will expose it very quickly. And you will either take that, that exposition and you will say, okay, I'm going to correct this. I'm going to stop smoking. I'm going to stop drinking as much. I'm going to change this. I'm going to change that. Or you don't. But, I think most people choose the former over the latter.
Sure. So Dr. Nick, in line with that, the first thing I want to say is, for those of you who are listening to this, who are maybe personal trainers in a commercial gym and don't work in CrossFit, sending your patients to a doctor who you find on CrossFit Health, they're not going to push someone to do CrossFit. What you can know, though, is that person has diet, exercise, and mindset as things that are of high importance to them. So you're not going to have to worry about that doctor telling your client, stop going to the gym.
Sure.
And that's the value of that. So I don't want to undersell at all what we were talking about before. I'm extremely excited about that. I didn't know CrossFit was coming out with that. And I think that's a huge resource as far as doctors go. Because not only did those doctors have enough initiative to work out, they had enough initiative to go to a place to surround themselves with other doctors who prioritize working out so that they could better relate to a population of people who work out. That's cool. Mm-hmm. I like that.
Absolutely.
So now the next question I want to ask you is, you mentioned that these people would work out with you 5, 10, 15, 20 times to develop the rapport with you, or they have the rapport with you, but to then develop that same rapport with physical fitness in general before they could graduate off and go into a gym. Mm-hmm. How does the gym local to you, because you're in Denver, it's probably 30. How does one of them stand out as the one that Dr. Nick is going to refer all of his patient graduates to because they do a great job? How are you going to know?
I personally, like I said earlier, right? I believe, look, none of us are God. None of us are omnipotent. You can only know what you know, but hopefully when you know what you know what you don't know. And what I don't know is the expanse of gyms in this area and the level of virtuosity that they focus, on with their movements, or how slowly or how quickly they ramp up intensity with their clients. I don't know that. What I do know is my gym personally, and at my gym that I've been to now for many months, all of the coaches are absolutely stellar. So if I were to do kind of the program that I'm hoping to set up, I would specifically be referring them to essentially a place that I have rapport with, and that I know firsthand, and that's my gym.
Do you want to give that gym a shout out?
Yeah, it's CrossFit Omnia, located in Denver, Colorado.
Good job, CrossFit Omnia. So my question to you is, let's say that you didn't have CrossFit Omnia, or let's say it's one of your Steady MD patients.
Sure.
And they say to you, Doc, I need to find a gym. I know that you're not going to be able to research every gym in the country. I know that you're not going to be able to research every gym in your area. And I know that you could tell the patient, look for this, and this in the gym. What I want to be able to understand and help our listeners understand is, what could somebody who believes that they are that gym and is in proximity to you? I don't want everyone in the world reaching out to Dr. Nick and being like, hey, if you have a Steady MD patient in Montana, that's not what I'm looking for, right? But I do want the coach in Montana reaching out to the doctor in Montana who they believe could be sending patients their way when they're done with their medical care. What could somebody do that would get your attention and earn your respect, to give you an opportunity to demonstrate and earn your trust, and have them be the gym that you refer to locally?
Just as I stated earlier, just a coach being very proactive about meeting the physicians locally in his area who seem to be aligned with the values and beliefs that they have. And like I stated earlier, with the amount of hypocritical doctors, it's pretty easy to take a look at a doctor and just tell, okay, this is someone who lives the life, that they espouse, or this is somebody who doesn't. So yeah, essentially, I think it's just a certain amount of effort. A coach just needs to be willing to go out in the community, whether it takes 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, to meet all the doctors locally and then filter through them carefully until, they find someone who they're comfortable referring patients to, and who is inversely, and who that doctor is also comfortable referring patients to that trainer, because I think that's something that is very valuable. All too often, these days, I'm looking for nutritionists and registered dietitians to send patients to, and to be able to add on to that and say, hey, I also want to know coaches in the area who are very who are very vocal and who are very kind of this is what they're really on top of, and they're very they're willing to reach out to me and find me and are aligned with my values. Then I think that it would kind of behoove any doctor to work with that type of coach who is very proactive.
So does that proactive coach send your clinic an email? Do they call? Do they come in? Do they have a card on it that says, hey, my name is Sean. I'm a coach at the following gym, and these are the values that I have. If you have patients and you would like them to line up with a coach who has these values, please think of me. What does the coach do to make it tactical enough for someone to hear this and take an action?
I get it. I would recommend either emailing or calling, at which time, if they're like any doctor's office across the country, they're going to have a front desk staff. make it very clear to the front desk staff, hey, this is my role. This is what I do in the community. I would like to speak to your doctors or any one of your doctors and essentially find out what their thoughts would be as it relates to health and fitness and lifestyle changes, and essentially find out whether or not your doctor and I are on the same page. And, if they are, we could set up a mutually beneficial relationship. With that, the front desk staff will either send us a task or send us an email. And the doctors who read that and are very much on board with that kind of introduction will say, hey, they'll jump on that and say, let's set up a time, whether 5 or 10 minutes, or even talk on the phone. Right. Let's get to know each other. The doctors who are averse to that line of thinking won't respond. And guess what? You just did your filtering for you. You literally didn't waste any time, with somebody physically who wouldn't even be on board with your very most initial invitation. So, with that said, I think that's something that, anyone could do and would kind of take a minimal amount of energy.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I mean, I think that people think, coaches especially, doctors don't want to refer to coaches. I'm not going to do anything about this. And I think that they're wrong. And I think that the other thing is, I know physical therapists walk into medical doctors and especially orthopedist offices all the time, and they're bringing lunch and they're doing all this other stuff because they're trying to woo the doctor and earn the love of the large volume of patients that they're seeing. And that's a difficult road to sled, but physical therapists still do it. It's difficult because there's a lot of them doing it, but there's no coaches calling doctors.
I don't think that works, Sean. So I know what you're talking about, right? Just the other day, actually, literally just yesterday, I go into the office and there was a, oh, damn it, I'm blanking. What are those? Not the Contigo mugs, but the other, there's like a really,
Yeti? You talking about Yeti mugs?
Yes. Thank you. Yeti mugs. Anyway, so I come to my desk and there's a Yeti mug from some local, wasn't a physical therapist, like some local like neurologist group or something, right? So, and then they will often, so within the Yeti mug, there were a bunch of business cards, right? Listen, I can't speak. I can only speak for myself, right? I don't know how other doctors look upon that kind of stuff. I don't look upon it like literally I took the mug, and I already have a Contigo mug, so I gave it to my medical assistant. I was like, here, look, I'm regifting you this. I don't want it, and it's a waste for me. And I literally threw the business cards away, right? Because essentially, business cards tell me nothing. Your name on a piece of paper that you're writing saying, hey, Dr. Nick, blah, 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 that tells me nothing. I think that what I mentioned earlier to you is a more organic relationship that can truly start to be formed and then solidify over some time. And, that's how you would get me to refer to you instead of leaving me, little gifts that you don't even know if I value or I need,
Right. And how would they follow up? Because I think that the mistake that a lot of coaches especially will make, because forget it. Everyone makes this mistake. Is like, I emailed this guy last week. He said, yeah, if I ever get somebody, I'll send them your way. I like what you're all about. And it's been a week and he hasn't sent anybody. Right. Mm-hmm. And then obviously you didn't have anybody yet. Mm-hmm. But how do they follow up so that they can be like, all right, well, I know he's still thinking about me. I'm at least still on his mind, but I don't want to be, the naggy pants. Hey, you didn't send me anybody yet, and I'm trying to send you people, but no one's sick. I mean, how does that work? How would you want that to work?
I think because you make a good point, right? You don't want to make it appear that you're being too pressing. So I think that a perfect middle ground to strike would be to simply wait until you can send that doctor, one of your people in your gym who, let's say, you talk to them and they haven't seen a doctor for an annual physical in years, or they're just starting working out and, instead of taking the general advice of seeing their doctor, they don't have a doctor, so they haven't seen anyone. So I would wait for that person for that moment and then send them to the doctor and then message, whether it's email, text, phone call, whatever, message the doctor and let them know, hey, listen, I have someone coming your way. It's very it's very easy to remind someone that you're present when you are very willing to give them value first. You shouldn't be the one just expecting value. You should be willing to give somebody value first, and then there is a give and take, a symbiotic relationship that's established. But you shouldn't be super focused initially on take. Focus more on give, and it'll come back around for you.
I love that. Now, we first really connected when you reposted. That is when I found you the first time. You reposted one of my posts that said, if you want to be world-class, prepare to be unrelatable. And I very much appreciated that. You also recently posted something I'm looking at right now. I think it was your last post at this point. Yeah, it was 2 hours ago. Embarrassment is the cost of entry. If you're not willing to look like a foolish beginner, you will never become a graceful master. I love that. What do they mean? Because I think to me, those two things, those two posts are very, very, very similar in mind. Mm-hmm. So what does it mean to you? What do you mean by prepare to be embarrassed?
I mean, look, that's not a mindset. Okay. Let me back up here. So, on my Instagram, I post essentially beliefs that I have and beliefs that I have had since med school and that I currently have. And it's literally just like spilling out of my thoughts. I don't try and please anybody or attend to anybody else's kind of, whims and caprices. So with that being said, that post is a very much mindset focus, because I'm a huge believer that that a lot of people's issues that are holding them back and keeping them unhealthy and keeping them out of the gym and whatnot are mindset based. And that, if you can help to correct, as a coach or as a doctor, if you can help to correct a patient's mindset, then all of a sudden they're going to make the right choices. They're going to do the right things because you have fixed the fundamental problem. So what I mean by that most recent post is, I have heard that, and I'm sure you have too, Sean. I've heard from way too many patients that they are very embarrassed to go into the gym because, people will be looking at me and what will people think? And essentially, there's this focus on the external as opposed to a focus on the internal. They are essentially prioritizing the potential, and I say potential because these are not definite, but they are prioritizing the potential thoughts, negative thoughts of other people, and allowing that to literally hold back their self-development. So, that's essentially what that post means to me, is that, whether it's martial arts, running, CrossFit, skiing, snowboarding, it doesn't matter. You have to be willing to look like a fool. And in my opinion, the best way to do that is to quite genuinely not care what other people think. There's too much of an obsession with, what are other people going to think? And it's literally holding these, so many people back from making decisions that are kind of sentinel decisions, in that they will have an effect on the rest of their lives. So, that's what I meant in that post. And in the caption of, so you just stated the initial line, but I have an entire caption where, I elaborate on it more. And, that's kind of what it means. That's kind of what it means to me.
I like it. I mean, it's, I would actually like to read the caption to people if you're okay with that. So it says, in quotes, "I'm too embarrassed to join a gym and have people look at me," unquote. And it says, if there is one most common excuse for not becoming more active that I hear from patients beyond wanting to wait for next year's January 1st, it has to be that. Hearing that line from someone I'm caring for always makes my heart sink. That comes from a place of self-disdain and comparison. Unfortunately, that same place will glue your feet and keep you from growth if you let it. The fact is that everyone started somewhere. That means everyone had to go through either that embarrassment until they were embarrassed no longer, or by far my favorite, B, dismiss the uninformed stated and unstated judgments of others entirely and not even feel any level of embarrassment for trying to improve yourself in the first place. You have a choice. Choose to manage your mindset entirely and put yourself on a path that will make your future self thankful for your current self's decisions. #mindsets matter. I love that. It's awesome. I mean, you don't become a black belt in Taekwondo, a medical doctor, a guy who snatches close to 300 pounds if you haven't hit it yet, right? Yeah. You don't get to do all. Still haven't done it?
No, I'm at 275.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, come on, man.
I'll get there.
Come on, man.
Someday.
So you don't get to that level of excellence in 3 different things without allowing people to look at you when you first started and say, you're crazy. What are you doing? So I think it's again, another example of you actually being the things that you're saying that you believe other people would be valuable to think about being. So what led you to Steady MD? How did you end up working with people online? It seems like from the outside looking in, and I want to give you the opportunity to speak to the counterpoint of this. It seems like a less personal experience than coming into your clinic. Now, I know just from knowing your social media and just from talking to you for the last 30 minutes or so, that you wouldn't do it if that was the case. So what led you to doing that, and how is it that you can connect with people on a level that is similar to a clinic, if not better?
So, in support of your point, there is, yes, look, you're not laying a stethoscope on them, right? You're not laying a hand on their back. So you lose the physical aspect of the encounter. I do believe that what you gain is much more than what you lose. What you gain is, a decrease in the disappointment and the frustration that many patients have with their doctor's offices and having to, wait in the waiting room, and then, not only having to wait, but then having their doctors be 10 or 20 or 30 minutes late. And then finally getting into the doctor's office and talking with the doctor. And it just seems like, they're rushing you along because they want to move on to the next patient. And then obviously that rushing you along will have a direct impact on your care when you have a doctor who is much less likely to talk to you about your lifestyle and instead, focus on the most appropriate pharmacological therapy that they can think of. So, I do think that from that aspect and from another aspect that I think is gained with Steady MD and with telemedicine is that, patients have access to me at all times. And, that first appointment is just like, we are right now. I can see them, they can see me, body language is communicated, and a level of rapport is built with that first hour or hour and a half video chat. And then beyond that, at any point that they want to have another appointment about something else entirely or as a follow-up and they want to have a video chat, they can. If they don't have time for a video chat and they want to do a phone call instead with me as their doctor, they can at any point that they'd like. If they don't have time for a phone call and they want to instead, text message me, and they want clarification on whatever it happens to be, they can message me and I can respond. So as opposed to being relegated to the strict appointment based setting that many physical practices are, there's a level of flexibility with Steady MD that you cannot beat otherwise. You simply cannot match it. And with that said, I was very inclined to, I'm sure you've heard of him, Dr. Spencer Nadolsky, if I'm pronouncing his last name correctly. He's pretty big on Instagram, and he was essentially one of the first doctors working for Steady MD. And he found me on the program, and his tagline is "the doc who lives." So I think that's essentially how they found me, and how Dr. Spencer found me is that, hey, listen, he was aware of this doctor on Instagram who, lifted weights and seemed to have the same type of mindset that he had as it pertains to lifestyle changes. And, he reached out to me and wanted to know, if I'd be interested in the job. And I looked into it and, was very pleased at all the benefits that could be gained with that practicing of that type of medicine. So, I hopped on board and haven't looked back. And, I have a number of patients currently. Like I stated earlier, I practice in 23 states. And, that essentially gives me a luxury that I would not be able to enjoy otherwise. If I did not practice through telemedicine in all these other states, there are a litany of patients who I would literally never be able to care for, never be able to see, never be able to help, change their lives and their lifestyles as necessary to make the improvements that they need. So yeah, obviously, as you can tell, I'm sure I'm very big on the lifestyle changes aspect of SteadyMD, but even beyond that, the fact that many of my patients will message me, hey, Dr. Nick, I'd like a refill on this medication. And without, necessarily having to come in and physically see me for another appointment, we can touch base on it over the phone or over text message or over video chat. And then I can refill it instantly. It doesn't matter if they're 500 miles or 1,000 miles away from me, I can, refill their medication and send them. I've referred patients to, physical therapists, diabetic educators, dermatologists. There's quite literally no restriction in the practice of SteadyMD that, occurs in any appreciable manner that would make me regret kind of the opportunity that it provides.
That's good, man. It sounds like it's time for you to be able to start referring patients, your patients, to Active Life RX to be clients when they got some joint pain. Opportunity knocks, my man. All right. So if somebody listens to this and they're like, that guy is talking my language, how do they become your patients? They don't go to SteadyMD, sign up, and then hope that they get Dr. Nick, right? How do they become your patient? I mean, I'm thinking about my family right now as we speak.
Sure. So I'm going off memory here, so let me pull it up. But essentially, they would go to steadymd.com, and at the very bottom, there is a link. There's a button that says Our Mission and Team. And Our Mission and Team will essentially take you to a page where there are all of the doctors who serve SteadyMD and serve patients through SteadyMD. And, they just find my name there, Dr. Nick, tap on it. And that will take you to a page with kind of my biography and, just essentially, everything about me. And I do think that reading this page is absolutely important because, for example, one thing that SteadyMD is big on is essentially alignment with your doctor. What I mean by that is it is very unlikely that because people can read an entire bio about me and know more about me, it is very unlikely that I will come across patients who are just very pill happy and don't want to put in work. And that is a great thing because that means that these patients have alignment with my values and my beliefs, and they're willing to get to the fundamental root of a problem instead of fixing it with a Band-Aid. So this is in direct contrast to you going to see a doctor locally where, you have no idea who you're going to get. You have no idea what their fundamental values and their beliefs and their principles are. It is quite literally a crapshoot with a local doctor. So anyway, when you're on that page with me at SteadyMD, there is a button, an orange button right at the bottom that says Get Started with Dr. Nick. And if you tap on that and kind of fill out everything that's requested afterward, it will essentially let you know if I can be your doctor or not. And that is solely contingent upon whether or not I am licensed in the state that you reside. As I stated, I'm currently licensed in 23 states, and that number is ever expanding. So, even if I am not currently licensed in your state of residence, it's likely coming soon enough. And, if you really want me to be a doctor, I would absolutely be happy to.
Thanks, Dr. Nick. Is there anything else that I need to be asking you before I let you go off to your beautiful day?
No. I mean, that's whatever you'd like to ask me. I think that, I definitely appreciated, like I said, you reaching out, because just going through your Instagram page, you're very much a pragmatist, a pragmatist. I'm sorry, instead of the inverse of that. And I appreciate kind of your mindset. So yeah, I wanted to talk to you and just kind of share our beliefs and share our mindsets. And, I very much like that you are very much mindset oriented too. So, there's really nothing else that I have to share. For anybody who is on Instagram and, would like to check out my page and my recommendations as it pertains to health, fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, in my opinion, mindset, they can check out my page on Instagram at The Fittest Doc, all one word, The Fittest Doc, which, some people have asked kind of where that came from. And it's essentially my belief and my goal of kind of always shooting for your best self and always kind of progressing towards the pinnacle of yourself. So, the Fittest Doc to me essentially represents a never ending struggle to become my best and to become the best Nick that I can be and the best doctor that I can be. And so that's where it comes from. So that's where you can check me out on Instagram if you'd like to.
It's definitely worth checking it out on Instagram. I like your account. I like what you stand for. I like what you're able to help people do. And I wish every doctor was like you. They're not, and that's okay. Not every coach is like the best coach in the world either. But now at least people who are looking for a doctor like you can find you and do it.
Sure.
So Dr. Nick, thanks a lot. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. Have a good one.
You too. All right, that's going to be a wrap for this episode of the Active Life Podcast. And guys, remember, if you are looking to enhance your fitness business, if you're sitting there thinking, man, I would love to be able to go on vacations. I would love to be able to take 2 weeks off and not have my business fall apart. And most importantly, if you want to be a part of the movement that we are creating, facilitating, and seeing come to life, which is coaches and gyms becoming the healthcare clinic of the future, helping people who've gotten hurt working out, helping people who've been told they have to work out around that, having people be told they're too old to do that, find new hobbies. If hearing things like that for your clients is frustrating for you and you want to learn the skills to solve those problems and also get paid very well to do it, head to activelifeprofessional.com and let's get talking. Till then, turn pro.